The Fanatec V3 pedals were the choice for many years for pedals around the 400 to 450 euro mark. With the release of the CSL Elite V2s, the choices were made more difficult. So which one should you choose? I bought the V3s a few years ago and the V2s were sent by Fanatec for review. I have had plenty of time to use both, so the conclusions may not be what you think. The V3 pedal set, believe it or not, have been released 7 years ago. During that time, nothing has really changed. They have been a workhorse of Fanatec since their launch for very good reasons. The overall design is sturdy, it works, though some design choices have kind of aged, especially when this guy comes along with a refreshed look and improvements. The V2s then pick up where the original Elites left and fix pretty much all of its shortcomings. With that, they have even brought a new brake design, and sadly, a price increase. If you want to see more in-depth reviews, check out the cards above. Side by side, we can see the differences in philosophy. The V3s are quite a good-looking set with polished metal showing in places. The Elite V2s, they feel rugged and industrial. Spec-wise, they are similar-ish, but specs don't tell the whole story because numbers hide the big differences. The prices, they are also different. The V2s are now 299 euros or dollars, and the V3s start at 399. That for me is kind of moot because they need at least the brake performance kit to be made usable. As from stock, it only comes with the foam that isn't really that good in my opinion. For the V3s, there are also other upgrades that you can buy separately, like the damper kits that can be used in the brake and the throttle, as well as there is an inverted version of the V3s, which is significantly more money. What is also significant is subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much. The CSL V2s will come with different elastomers from the box. There's a whole new design for the load cell where it goes to the bottom of the travel and they add from stock a preload spring. The V3 will come in a box with a different pedal face, an angle adjustment tool, and a couple of springs for the throttle and brake. The construction type on the V2 will allow for adjustability where it's possible to move the pedals side to side or remove the clutch pedal altogether. The V3s don't have that adjustability. The stock pedal faces can be moved to left to right, change to different faces, or use a standoff that allows for angle adjustment. Or if you buy the damper separately, you can add a damper for both throttle and also for the brake, as well as mix and match the throttle and clutch springs. Mounting these pedals is quite easy, just like any other Fanatec pedal set. They should be used on a sim rig or at the very least on a wheel stand. They can be used on a floor, but it is not recommended at all. If used on the floor, you'll have to reduce the load cell sensitivity, otherwise it will be very easy to topple the pedals over. A word of caution, when mounted to the rig, please insert the cables first, as the electronic boxes are hidden in the worst place possible for a pedal set. I've had quite a few times where I install the pedals to the rig, forget the cables, and then I'll have to redo everything again. There's at least 100 euros difference in price, but in my opinion, there isn't really 100 euros in difference in experience. They are, of course, quite different pedal sets and they feel quite different. Structurally, both of them are rigid, there's no creaks and there's no movement. Starting with the CSL, the V2s have improved a lot from the first version. Years later, while they still look basic, they do what it says in the tin. The V3s have a lot of adjustability going for them. In the box, there are quite a few springs that can be used on the throttle and clutch. The CSL in comparison relies on torsion springs that cannot be changed. This means using them, they are quite different. They have different objectives. The CSL has a fundamental edge on the brake design. The V3s will bring a lot of adjustability for the pedal set, but it will require the brake performance kit to be installed to balance things out. The brake pedal in the CSL is really good, has a really nice meaty experience with a believable movement, far superior to the V3s in my opinion. Observing the pedals as a full set is where the V3s might take a little bit of an edge. The upgraded brake doesn't have the same amount of movement or feel as the CSL. It is noticeably below the V2s, though the experience is rounded up with the throttle and a clutch system that is customizable and honestly much better. The V3s will rely on the whole set to tell its story, while the CSL Elite V2s is good in many aspects and exceptional in one, which is the brake. Personally, the track performance for me ends up being very similar. The V2s are definitely better under brakes. It's so much easier to trail brake as the brake phases from the spring and elastomers blends extremely well. Everything in the movement makes sense for the brake. The V3s in comparison will feel very dated. The brake feel is noticeably inferior and it is a little more one-dimensional. You can say that the V3s in terms of brake is trailing behind. Pun intended. This was already the case with the original CSL Elites. It is much more so with this new version. The V3s will have an edge on spring and damper choices as it allows for finer throttle control. The choice between throttle control and trail braking performance is where I believe most will have to think about to make an informed purchasing decision between these two pedal sets, or none at all, choosing from other brands. Out of the box, I can't really say that the V3s feel like a stronger offer, but rather it feels like a more rounded one with all of the small things that can be done, modified, personalized. That means the experience can be catered mostly to you. As a package, it is a better pedal set, but the thing is, it's still over 400 euros. You really have to buy separately the brake performance kit. Without it, in my opinion, this pedal set is a huge miss. And to this day, I don't understand why, or rather, I do, why Fanatec doesn't give it away. But ultimately, with the release of the V2s, the V3 pedal set feels dated. The damper helps with throttle control, but it's really not necessary. The V2s then, much like the V1s before them, they are a pedal set that ticks all the necessary boxes and it does it really well, but it offers one killer feature, which is that wonderful brake pedal. So, between the two of them, my recommendation is now more difficult than it was almost 2 years ago when I did the video, as the V2s increased price from 219 euros to 299. So, the price difference is much smaller. So, for me, if I were choosing between the two and I didn't have any pedal sets, I would take the V2s over the V3s. The reason is simple, it is easier to train throttle control than it is to learn trail braking, and the V2's braking experience is definitely superior in this comparison. The V3s are an excellent pedal set, though looking at the V2s, it is really missing something. Whenever Club Sport V4 comes out, if it ever comes out, it needs to come with something similar to this. Some of you will be asking about the base CSL with the load cell. Well, in my opinion, really forget about it unless you can't afford an Elite V2. The difference between these pedal sets can be quite substantial, and in my opinion, it's not really worth to pursue a CSL load cell when you have the V2s released.